The first punch wasn't meant to hurt, it was meant to humiliate me. And I knew from the second his fist grazed my jaw, he wasn't fighting for money. He was fighting for something darker, something personal. They called him Golden Boy in the underground circuit. Blonde hair, a perfect smile, and a reputation that stretched across every smoke-filled basement ring in New York. He had money, connections, and the crowd in the palm of his hand. I had nothing but raw fists and rent overdue by 2 months. So when he Esquedno paid me to fight him, everyone thought it was another rich kid's game. He would beat me, the no-name street fighter, and earn another notch on his belt. Except things didn't go the way he expected. Because the moment his knuckles cracked against mine, I saw it in his eyes: hesitation. The kind that says, I want you to fight me, but I don't really want to break you. And that was the night everything started. The ring smelled of sweat and stale beer, the crowd chanting his name like he was some kind of god. I hated the way the sound shook the floor beneath my feet, as if the universe itself was against me. My ribs already screamed from the last fight, but I couldn't back down. Not when the envelope of cash promised to keep my little brother fed for another month. He stood across from me, grinning, his gloves already raised. That smile wasn't cruel, it was curious, playful almost. Like I was some puzzle he couldn't wait to solve. You sure you're ready for this? His voice was low, but it carried, smooth like honey sliding over steel. I spat blood to the side and smirked. I don't get paid to be ready. I get paid to survive. The bell rang. His first jab was quick, but I caught it, twisting, letting the impact roll off my shoulder. The crowd gasped. He wasn't used to people blocking him. By the third round, I realized something dangerous was holding back. Not because he pitied me, but because he wanted me to last longer. Every hit, every dodge wasn't just a fight. It was a conversation. His body asking, how much can you take? Mine answering, more than you'll ever understand. But then, in the blur of fists and shouts, his glove brushed against my cheek in a way that wasn't a strike. A fleeting touch, almost tender. My heart stuttered in my chest, and for one terrifying second, I forgot to breathe. Later, in the locker room, bruises blooming across my ribs, I found him waiting. No crowd, no lights. Just him leaning against the wall, arms crossed, like he had all the time in the world. You're not like the others, he said quietly. I laughed, bitter and hoarse. Yeah, because the others don't need the money this bad. But his eyes blue, sharp, searching, didn't look at me like I was just another fighter. He looked at me like I was something fragile he couldn't figure out how not to break. Come back tomorrow, he said. Same deal. I wanted to say no. I wanted to spit in his face, tell him I wasn't his toy. But the money was too good, and the truth? The truth was, I wanted to see what was hiding behind that perfect smile. So I came back, again and again. Weeks passed, and the fights blurred into something else. He still threw punches, but there were moments when the gloves fell and our eyes locked, when the crowd's roar faded, and it was just us in that ring. Rivals on paper, but something more dangerous growing between us. One night, after a fight that left both of us bleeding, he cornered me in the alley behind the club. The cold New York air burned my lungs, but his closeness burned worse. Why do you keep doing this? I asked, pushing him back with shaking hands. You could hire anyone to fight you. Anyone. He stepped closer, his voice dropping. Because none of them make me feel alive the way you do. The words hit harder than any punch he'd ever thrown. And I hated him for it. Hated that my heart clenched when he looked at me like that. Hated that despite everything, the bruises, the blood, I wanted him. I told myself I was just another paycheck. But deep down, I knew. I was lying. The turning point came on a night when the crowd wasn't satisfied with just fists. A bet was placed, a demand for blood. They wanted one of us broken. I could feel it in the way the air vibrated, restless and cruel. He stood across from me, his smile gone, replaced by something raw, almost desperate. If we fight like they want, he whispered as we touched gloves, you won't walk out of here. I clenched my jaw. Then don't fight me. His eyes flickered fear, frustration, something else I didn't dare name. But the bell rang, and choice was stripped from us. The fight was brutal, uglier than anything before. Not because he wanted to hurt me, but because the crowd wanted blood. Every punch he threw, I saw it war inside him. The need to please them and the need to protect me. And when his fist connected with my ribs, sending me sprawling to the ground, he dropped to his knees beside me, not in victory, but in anguish. "Stay down," he begged under the roar of the crowd. "Please, just stay down." But I pushed myself up, blood dripping from my mouth, shaking, defiant. "If you want me to stay down, you'll have to kill me." His face twisted anger, grief, and something so heartbreakingly human. And that was the moment he realized wasn't in control anymore. The crowd roared as if they'd just witnessed a man dying in front of them. The sweat on my skin felt like it was freezing, and every bone in my body screamed. I could barely stand, but I forced myself upright because that was all I knew how to do. Keep moving, keep fighting, even when the whole world begged me to fall. He didn't throw another punch. Not this time. His hands hovered in the air, shaking, his chest rising and falling as if he'd been running for miles. His blue eyes were wild, panicked, darting from my bleeding face to the restless crowd. "Stop," he mouthed at me, his voice almost swallowed by the noise. "Please." But the ringmaster barked for the fight to continue. Money was at stake, and in their eyes we weren't people, we were entertainment. And then, something broke inside him. He threw his gloves down. The sound cracked like a gunshot in the underground arena. The crowd erupted with boos, curses, bottles smashing against the cage. I'd never seen a fighter do that, ever. He didn't care. He stormed toward me, grabbed my wrist, and hauled me against his chest as if shielding me from a hailstorm. His breath was hot against my ear, trembling, desperate. "You're not doing this anymore," he said, voice raw. "Not for them. Not for me." I froze. My body sagged against him, exhaustion swallowing me whole. The crowd wanted blood, but all I felt in that moment was the steady thump of his heart, hammering as fast as mine. His grip was firm, not to restrain me but to keep me from falling. And for the first time since I started fighting, I realized I wasn't alone. The aftermath was chaos. They dragged us out before the crowd could riot. Money was lost, bets unsettled, and men in dark suits made threats about debts and contracts. He took every word of it head-on, shoulders squared, jaw clenched like stone. Not once did he let them corner me. When we finally stumbled into the back alley, bruised and half-broken, I shoved his arm away. "What the hell was that?" My voice cracked. "You just made enemies of half the underground circuit. They'll come after you. They'll come after me." He didn't flinch. He didn't even look angry. He just looked at me, and in his eyes was something I hadn't seen before: fear. "I couldn't hit you again," he whispered. "Not like that. Not when I—" He trailed off, biting down hard on the words. "When you what?" I demanded. Silence. His hands trembled at his sides, fists curling, then loosening again. He looked like a man torn open, terrified of the answer even as it clawed its way out. "When I don't want to lose you," he finally said. The alley spun around me. My ribs ached, my blood still wet on my lips, but none of it mattered, because in that moment, his words landed deeper than any blow ever could. I should have laughed in his face. I should have told him he was insane, that this whatever this was wasn't real. But I couldn't. My throat locked up, and all I managed was a whisper. "You hired me to fight you." He stepped closer, his breath clouding in the night air. And somewhere along the way, I realized I didn't want a rival. I wanted you. It was supposed to end there. Two men standing in a filthy alley, bleeding and broken, knowing damn well the world wasn't built for them. But it didn't. Because the next night, instead of showing up at the ring, I found myself at his apartment. I don't know what I expected. Marble floors? A penthouse dripping with luxury? But when he opened the door, what I saw was simple. Too simple. A couch that had seen better days, a stack of records on the table, photos scattered carelessly along the shelves. "Not what you pictured, huh?" he said with a sheepish grin. I shrugged, stepping inside. Honestly thought you'd have more gold-plated furniture. He laughed an actual laugh, unguarded and warm. It hit me harder than any punch. We sat. We didn't talk about the fights or the money or the people who wanted us ruined. We talked about music, about the city, about stupid things that didn't matter but somehow mattered more than anything. And then, when the silence grew heavy, he reached out. His hand brushed mine, hesitant, trembling. "You don't have to stay," he said softly. "But if you do, I swear I won't let anyone hurt you again." I should have pulled away. Instead, I let his fingers curl around mine. For the first time in years, I felt safe. But the world doesn't forgive softness. The threats came quickly. Men followed me home, shadows lingered on corners, and one night, a warning was carved into my door. "Stay down or we'll put you down." I stormed into his apartment, throwing the note onto his table. "This is because of you." His face paled. He read the words, crumpled the paper in his fist. "They won't touch you," he said, voice trembling with rage. "They already have." I snapped. "You think just because you've got money and a pretty smile, you can protect me? You can't. This isn't your world, Anna Marie, it's mine. And people like me don't get happy endings." His jaw tightened. He crossed the room in 2 strides and grabbed my shoulders, not rough, but enough to make me stop shaking. "Then I'll make one," he said fiercely. "With you, or not at all." Something broke inside me then, because for so long, I'd fought to stand, to survive, to keep breathing in a world that wanted me crushed. And here he was, telling me I didn't have to fight alone anymore. I hated him for that hope. I hated him because I wanted it. And I hated him most of all because in that moment, I knew I was falling. The nights blurred together after that. He still fought, but only for show, never the brutal matches the crowd demanded. I trained less, my body healing for the first time in years. Sometimes we ended up on his couch, music low, his arms slung lazily around my shoulders. Sometimes we fought about the future, about the danger, but no matter how much I shoved him away, he came back. One night, when the world outside felt too sharp, he pulled me close, lips brushing my temple. "I don't care if the whole damn city burns," he whispered, "as long as I have you." And I let myself believe him. But happy nights are fragile things. And the underground ring never forgives betrayal. The call came on a rainy evening. A demand, not a request. One last fight. Double the payout. No refusals. If he didn't show, they'd come for both of us. He tried to hide it, but I saw the letter trembling in his hand. "No," I said immediately. "We're not doing this." His eyes met mine, sorrow heavy in their depths. "If I don't, they'll kill you." "Then let them try," I shot back, but he shook his head, already resigned. "I can take it. I won't let them touch you." "You'll die," I whispered. He smiled then, soft, aching. "Then let me die knowing you're safe." Something inside me snapped. I grabbed his shirt, pulled him down, and kissed him hard enough to taste blood and rain and despair. "No," I said against his lips. "We fight together, or not at all." And in that kiss, in that promise, I knew the final battle wasn't just against fists. It was against the whole damn world. The rain hadn't stopped for 3 days. New York was a city drowning in its own sins, the streets slick with oil and water, every shadow stretching longer than it should. When the call came, I already knew the answer, even before he read the words aloud. One last fight. But this wasn't like before. It wasn't about glory, or bets, or the crowd's sick appetite. This was punishment. The underground wanted blood, and if we didn't give it, they would take it in other ways. He tried to keep me out of it. He always did. He thought by standing in front of me, he could shield me from everything, the fists, the debts, the ugly truth that men like us weren't meant to survive. But he didn't understand that I'd already bled too much to ever let him stand alone. So I went with him, into the heart of the beast. The warehouse smelled of rust and gasoline, the hum of generators cutting through the storm outside. Men in suits lined the edges of the makeshift ring, cigarettes glowing like red eyes in the dark. No cheering crowd this time, Just silence. The kind that pressed against your ribs, heavy, expectant. When we stepped inside, I felt the air shift. This wasn't a fight. It was an execution. Across from us stood a man I'd never seen before, tall, scarred, fists like bricks wrapped in tape. He didn't smile. He didn't posture. He just cracked his neck and waited. The boss of the circuit, a man with a cigar clenched between yellowed teeth, leaned forward. "You boys have been costing me money," he drawled. "Tonight you pay it back. One of you leaves standing. The other doesn't leave at all." The words dropped like stones in water. I turned to him, rival, my lover, my mistake. His jaw was set, but his eyes betrayed him. Fear. Not for himself. For me. I shook my head. "We're not doing this." But before he could answer, the bell rang. The fight began with violence that had no rhythm, no grace. The scarred man moved like a machine, fists swinging with the weight of someone who'd killed before. Every strike rattled my bones. Every dodge cost me more breath than I had to give. I staggered, blood dripping into my eye. He caught me before I could fall, shoving me back toward the ropes. "Stay down," he shouted. "Please just stay down." But I couldn't. Not when he looked at me like that. Not when I knew he'd throw himself into the fire if I didn't pull him out first. So I rose, teeth bared, lungs burning, and I fought. It became chaos fast. The scarred man drove me into the corner, his fists relentless. My ribs cracked, my vision blurred, but then I felt a hand on my shoulder. Not striking, steadying. Him. He stepped in front of me, fists raised, eyes blazing. "You'll go through me first," he snarled, and for a moment the warehouse stilled. 2 against 1 wasn't in the rules, but neither was love. We fought together. For the first time, not as rivals, not as hired enemies, but as something the underground couldn't name. Every strike I missed, he landed. Every blow I took, he shielded. We moved like we'd been fighting side by side our whole lives. The scarred man staggered, but he didn't fall. He came back harder, angrier, fists breaking flesh and bone. I hit the floor once, twice, but every time he was there, dragging me up, his voice in my ear. "Breathe. Just breathe. I've got you." I wanted to tell him I had him too, but my lungs wouldn't let me. Then came the moment everything broke. The scarred man feinted left, struck right, and his fist collided with my jaw so hard the world went white. I dropped, the concrete cold beneath me. Through the ringing in my ears, I heard him scream my name. He was on the scarred man in a heartbeat, fury unleashed, fists like thunder. I'd never seen him lose control like that, never seen the golden boy burn so dark. Every punch was a plea, every strike a promise that he'd trade his soul before letting me go. The scarred man fell. Hard. He didn't get back up, but neither did the silence last. The boss stood, cigar smoke curling in the dim light. "Beautiful," he said coldly, "but you broke the rules. Both of you did." Men in suits moved closer, shadows with guns glinting in their hands. My body screamed at me to stay down, but I couldn't. I dragged myself up, swaying, every nerve alight. I stood beside him, our shoulders brushing, our breaths ragged. "Together," I rasped. His hand brushed mine fleeting, desperate. Always. What happened next was chaos. Shouts, gunfire, the warehouse exploding into violence that had nothing to do with fists. We fought not to win, but to survive. Metal pipes swung. Bullets cracked against concrete. Men fell. I don't remember every detail, just fragments. His arm around my waist, pulling me behind cover. The heat of his blood on my hands as he took a hit meant for me. The taste of iron in my mouth as I screamed his name. By the time the sirens wailed in the distance, the warehouse was a graveyard of smoke and broken men. We stumbled out into the rain, barely standing, but alive. Alive together. We collapsed in the alley, rain washing the blood from our skin. He leaned against me, trembling, his golden hair dark with sweat and storm water. "You should have left me," he whispered. I laughed, choking on the sound. "You're an idiot if you think I could." His head dropped to my shoulder, his breath hot against my neck. "I don't deserve this. I don't deserve you." I cupped his jaw, forcing him to look at me. His eyes were shattered glass, but in them, I saw the truth we'd both been running from. "Then earn it," I said softly. "With me." And for the first time, he didn't argue. He just kissed me, rain and blood mixing between us, the city burning around us, and for one impossible heartbeat, we were infinite. But survival isn't the same as freedom. The underground wasn't gone, the debts weren't erased, and the danger wasn't over. But that night, in the rain-soaked silence, with his lips trembling against mine, I realized something that terrified me more than death. I wanted forever, even if forever meant fighting the whole damn world. Hospitals are cruel in their own way. White walls, fluorescent lights, and the constant hum of machines that make you feel less human and more like a number waiting to be called. After everything, the fists, the blood, the storm, we ended up here. Two bodies stitched together with pain and defiance. He was worse off than me. 3 broken ribs, a shoulder dislocated, stitches running across his side where the knife grazed him in the chaos. I stayed by his bed anyway, ignoring the nurses who told me I needed rest. Every time his chest rose, I counted it like a prayer. Every time his eyelids flickered, I gripped his hand tighter, terrified that if I let go, the world would rip him away. When he finally woke, his first words weren't about the pain. They weren't about the underground or the men who'd tried to kill us. They were about me. "You stayed." I laughed, though it cracked in my throat, like I had anywhere else to be. His lips trembled into a smile, small and broken. "I thought you'd leave. You thought wrong." I brushed damp hair from his forehead, swallowing the lump in my throat. "You don't get rid of me that easily." Tears burned my eyes, though I pretended it was just exhaustion. He squeezed my hand weakly, and for the first time since this nightmare began, I let myself breathe. Recovery wasn't romantic. It was slow, messy, and painful. He hated being confined to bed, snapping at the nurses, throwing me looks that begged me to let him escape the walls closing in. But I didn't. I forced him to stay, to heal, and somewhere in that stubborn fight, something changed between us. We learned each other in the quiet, without fists, without the roar of the crowd, without the weight of the underground pressing on our lungs. We learned the sound of each other's breathing at night, the way silence could be comforting instead of cruel, the way touch didn't always have to be about bruises. He read old books to me when sleep wouldn't come. I cooked terrible meals that he ate anyway, smiling like it was a 5-star feast. Sometimes, when the nightmares hit me harder than the pain, I'd wake to find his fingers tangled with mine, his voice whispering promises in the dark. "You're safe. We're safe. I've got you." And for the first time in years, I believed it. But the underground doesn't forget. We both knew it. One afternoon, when the sun finally broke through the clouds, a letter arrived. No threats this time, no demands. Just silence. A picture of us leaving the hospital, our faces half hidden, taped to a plain sheet of paper. A warning. A reminder. I crumpled it in my fist, heart pounding. He caught my wrist before I could throw it away. "They'll never stop," I said bitterly. "Then we make them." His voice was steady, eyes blazing with the same fire I saw in the ring. "We end this once and for all." I shook my head. "You think we can take down the whole system? They own this city. Then we don't do it alone." He leaned forward, voice low, urgent. "There are others. Fighters like us. People who've lost everything because of them. We find them. We fight with them. We make something better." It sounded insane. It sounded impossible. But then, so had the idea of us. And yet, here we were. The plan wasn't perfect. It was reckless, dangerous, built on hope as fragile as glass. But we carried it anyway. For weeks, we reached out in shadows, found others who'd been chewed up and spat out by the underground. A broken boxer with one good hand. A woman who used to run bets until they burned her house down. Kids who'd fought for scraps, desperate for something to believe in. We weren't soldiers. We weren't saints. But we were done being victims. And when the night came, when we finally moved against the men who'd owned us, I saw him like I never had before. Not as the golden boy, not as the rival who hired me, not even as the man who kissed me in the rain. I saw him as mine. It wasn't a clean fight. It wasn't the kind of story where the villains fall with one swing and the world applauds. It was ugly. People bled. We ran through alleys, ducked bullets, felt fear gnawing at our throats every second. But we didn't stop. And at the end of it, when the cops raided what was left of the circuit, when the bosses were dragged out in handcuffs, when the rings were burned down to rubble, we were still standing. Barely, but together. The city didn't change overnight. The scars didn't vanish. But the underground wasn't untouchable anymore. And for the first time, neither were we. Months later, the world looked different. We were different. I found a job at a gym training kids who wanted discipline instead of blood. He invested his money into something real, a community center where no one had to fight just to survive. We weren't perfect. We argued. We stumbled. We had nights where the weight of the past clawed at our chests until we couldn't breathe. But every morning, I woke up to him beside me. His hand warm against my skin, his breath steady, his smile soft. And every morning, I remembered why I'd chosen to stay. One evening, as the sun set behind the skyline, painting the city gold, he pulled me onto the rooftop of our building. The air was sharp with autumn, the wind tugging at our clothes. He stood there, nervous in a way I'd never seen, his fingers twitching like he didn't know what to do with them. "What's this about?" I asked, smirking. "If you're about to tell me you secretly signed us up for another fight." "Shut up," he muttered, though his voice cracked. And then, before I could tease him again, he dropped to one knee. For a second, the world stilled. The city noise faded. The air froze. My heart stopped. He held out a small, battered ring, not expensive, not flashy, just real. "I don't know how to do this right," he said, voice shaking. "I don't know if I deserve forever, but I know I want it. With you." Tears burned my eyes, unstoppable this time. My throat locked, words tangled, but somehow I managed to choke them out. "Yes," I whispered, then louder, steadier. "Yes." He slipped the ring on my finger, his hands trembling. And then he was standing, his lips crashing against mine, and the city erupted into light around us. We were never supposed to last. Not in this world. Not in this city. Not in a life built on blood and broken bones. But we did, because we chose each other, again and again, through every bruise, every scar, every night that tried to break us. He hired me to fight him. He thought he could control the outcome, that I'd be just another name in his ledger of victories. But instead, he lost. Lost his control. Lost his walls. Lost himself to me. And in losing, he found everything. So did I. And as I held him that night, our fingers entwined, the city humming with life below us, I realized something that made all the pain worth it. We weren't rivals anymore. We weren't enemies. We were love. Forever. Thank you for listening. If you find it interesting, please like and subscribe to follow the next stories.